Hi everyone and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet. Did you know that Muhammad was the greatest human in history? You did not, right? That's because you're ignorant. There is a list made by a non-Muslim professor of the greatest humans of all time, or the best humans of all time, or the most amazing humans of all time. And number one on that list, made by this professor of greatest humans of all time, is, of course, the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Peace be upon him. In fact, he was so great and amazing that there was no number 2, no number 3, no number 4, no number 5, no number 6, no number 7, no number 8, no number 9. Number 2 to 9 were all blank, because no one and nothing could be compared to the most amazing Prophet Muhammad, the greatest human in history. Number 10 is Jesus. Of course, I'm a bit exaggerating, but it is very popular among online Muslims to mention a list that apparently says that Muhammad was the greatest humans of all time. You might have heard of... Let me put this here so it's clear that I don't believe in such nonsense. By the way, you can get this cup in the description. There is a link to the store where you can get this cup for a much lower price right now. And it is very beneficial to have this cup by your side whenever you need to work, whenever you need to sip your coffee in the morning, to remember that you need to stay away from Islam. If you don't have this cup, you cannot stay away from Islam. You need this cup. You might have heard of this weird list. I have come across it so often. I'm sick of it. They tell me things like, oh, if Muhammad was so bad, then how can he be named the greatest man of all time? Or, haha, you just hate Muhammad. But did you know this American professor said Muhammad was the greatest man of all time? See? You are just some bigot. First off, it is true. There is a list, a ranking of 100 people in history, prepared by an American professor. And Muhammad is indeed number 1 on that list. But let us fix something very important here. The list is not about the greatest or best humans in history. No one could make a list on something so subjective and then be taken seriously. The list is actually the most influential persons in history, prepared by Michael H. Hart. And I hate to break it to the happy Muslims, but most influential and the greatest are not the same thing. If an individual is influential, that merely means that this individual influenced people to act and think a certain way. And that is not necessarily a good thing. An influential person may influence a large number of people with something very evil and change history, and then therefore be known as one of the most influential people in the world. I don't have to go very far to get examples. The author of this list, known as The 100, a ranking of the most influential persons in history, lists Genghis Khan on number 29, Hitler on number 39, and Stalin on number 66. Genghis Khan is known for uniting the tribes of Northeast Asia and invading Asia and Europe in what is historically well known as the Mongol invasions. His Mongol Empire became the largest contiguous empire in human history. And Genghis Khan didn't do this by being such a wonderful person who teaches to be decent. He did this by being an inspiring leader, but also by spreading fear across the world. Because it became known that his armies ruthlessly torture, kill, and rape, and burn, and destroy everything they come across. Genghis Khan is widely hated in the regions he and his descendants conquered and burned down. Adolf Hitler is responsible for World War II and the Holocaust. We all know his name. He was an absolutist ruler, a dictator, and he killed a lot of Jews and other people. So he was basically the Muhammad of the Germans. Except that Germans hated their Muhammad and the Arabs loved their Hitler. Stalin might be loved by some crazy communists, but Stalin is known for his atrocities that might even be called genocides. I'm not sure how being compared to these 3 guys is a good thing. But I have to give Muhammad one thing. He probably killed fewer people during his lifetime than Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, and Stalin combined. Although Hitler and Stalin had access to modern ways of massacre that Muhammad would have probably made good use of. But Muhammad influenced a much higher death count in history than Genghis Khan, Hitler, and Stalin combined. So yes, if Adolf Hitler, Stalin, and Genghis Khan, 3 despicable and horrible humans in history, are influential, then Muhammad was definitely much more influential and probably deserves the number 1. In fact, I have a book here that I recently picked up at the store. 100 People Who Changed the World. Same concept with different words. People who were influential. And guess what is here in this book? This book mentions Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden is mentioned among those most influential people. And some would say that Osama bin Laden is not very different from Muhammad, and I can't really blame them. You get the point, right? But okay, massacre alone doesn't make you the most influential person. So why is Muhammad on number one and not Jesus, as many of us would expect? Well, first off, this list is just a list prepared by an individual, and the fact that he put Muhammad on number one probably greatly contributed to the success of his book. He explains that he chose Muhammad for the first spot because, unlike Jesus, Muhammad was not only a religious figure in the center of the religion, he was directly a successful religious leader and a secular leader, meaning the leader of an army and a state. It was him who established Islam as a religion, turned it into a state, ruled over people with Islam, and started an endless campaign of religious conquests, the Islamic conquests. Michael H. Hart points out that these aggressive Islamic conquests were launched and inspired by him, and continued by his friends and advisors, who directly learned from him. So Muhammad was not just a religious figure like Jesus, he was also like Genghis Khan, which is not good. Jesus, in comparison, preached, was crucified, and resurrected as the story goes. But he was never in a position of human leadership, and the spreading of his religion was done by his followers. Christianity, as it is, was preached, basically established and spread by the Apostle Paul, not by Jesus himself, who is merely the figure at the center of the faith. This is why Michael H. Hart puts Jesus on number 3 and the Apostle Paul on number 6. And the two together would surpass Muhammad by far, but they are separate. I personally disagree with Michael H. Hart's logic, if it matters. I'm just some guy who recently lost his beard. Because in practice, Paul might have been at the core of Christianity, and he might have spread it. But the inspiration in everyone's mind, who everyone mentions, is not Paul, it is Jesus. Going by his logic, Moses shouldn't have been counted at all, since we have historically nothing on Moses, and his inspirations were only saved and solidified by other people around him, and long after him. Also, Jesus is not only the central figure and teacher of the largest religion in the world, he is also well known in other cultures and even part of the Islamic religion. Muhammad, in comparison, is only dear to Muslims and understandably to no one else. So, not only does this list say nothing about whether Muhammad was good or bad, while the explanation in the actual book mentions that the Islamic conquerors were very aggressive and very fierce, it would be especially completely subjective to make a list about who the greatest people were. Here is something else, for example, a data-driven ranking of the 100 most significant figures in history, featured by Time, and based on book mentions, Wikipedia, Google searches, and many other sources, shows that Jesus is the most significant, most mentioned figure in history. Then come Napoleon, Muhammad, and Shakespeare. Here is a different list from History Collection, where Muhammad is on number 6. What makes Michael H. Hart's list so special is nothing. What makes it so special is that he actually made such a list, which other people think you can't or shouldn't make. What makes it special is that Muhammad is on number 1, and that Muslims love looking for anything that would validate their Islamic ideology and their weird love for the great old Prophet Muhammad. In fact, many Muslims who love mentioning this list also act like Michael H. Hart was a very well-known and respected individual in the West. A great professor, and he said good things about Muhammad. First off, he didn't say good things about Muhammad. Secondly, he is not a great, respected professor in the West. With all due respect to Michael H. Hart's work and who he is. Michael H. Hart is a white separatist, which is today usually called white supremacist. He is someone who proposed dividing the United States into 4 race-based states. He thinks other races shouldn't live together with white people, and thinks this is bad for the European heritage and society. The man who attempted to make this list is by no means someone whom people look up to and whom people respect as a great person and professor. That is completely made up by Muslims in order to strengthen their point that someone great admires Muhammad and recognizes him as the greatest human of all time. I want to give credit to David Wood, by the way, who is the one who brought this to my attention. It's funny. Someone says something good about Muhammad and then it turns out to be a racist. Reminds me of another individual who said nice things about Islam and Muhammad. Dear Muslims, if Muhammad is popular, that doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't really say anything. How many people agree with him, how many people like him, doesn't really matter. His teachings matter. And most of humankind finds his teachings absolutely disgusting, disturbing, terrible, or just stupid. Even you have problems with his teachings. Otherwise, most of you wouldn't be busy redefining him or denying him, reinterpreting him and the book that he brought. Muhammad was influential, no doubt, but humankind would be much better today if he had failed from the very beginning. But it's not too late. Muhammad and his ideology are failing today, and I will gladly help them fail whenever I can. It's an honor. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and to like and to share. If you want to support the work that I'm doing, since most of my videos are not monetized and you can watch them without ads and they don't bring me any income, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link to that is below in the description. Thank you all so much for your support. I will be back very soon. Until then, have a great day and stay away from Islam.